What's up guys, it's Sam Robles from Palo Fishing, and today I'm going to show you how we install rear grips, seats, and butts. Stay tuned.
In my mind, I've got 'em big red on the line. That's where I go when I'm itching to feed my 7-day addiction.
Alright guys, so after you cut your blank, if you're going to cut it and you find your spine, the next thing is to take your butts and your rear grips and mark them out. And so the way we do here is we start off with the tape measure and we measure from the butt. And we're going to locate the center of this reel seat. And depending on your specific customer, the specific application, or the type of rod, will determine where exactly this reel seat will go. So if you're fishing on a kayak, it'll go, the butt end will be a little bit shorter. If you're throwing with a casting, a shorter casting wading rod, it'll be shorter, or a longer rod. So you really determine the actual distance based on your customer's preference. So in this case, we're building a 7-foot casting rod. So roughly, I'm looking at about somewhere between 9.5 to 10 inches is really kind of what we find here on this specific blank to get started. So I'll mark the center of it at 10, and this is the center of the reel seat. Alright, so now I have my reel seat here. I'm going to place it right there in the center, and then I'll mark the back end of it. And that's where my rear grip is going to start. And I'll now take my rear grip and mark that. And that'll show me the length of the rear grip. Alright, and the last thing we do is we take our butt end and we put it at the back end, and we mark this as well too. The next thing to do is to start reaming out your grips. And so this is pretty simple. We just use a power drill and just start reaming these out. So I've reamed these out already, so I'm going to nail this, but the process is pretty simple. I like to ream over a trash can so I collect all my dust in it. So just kind of show how we just ream this out a little bit here. And again, I pre-reamed these already, so I know these are actually going to fit pretty well. And then through this process, you can take some calipers and take measurements of this blank and measurements of your hole as you're reaming it out. To just kind of help the going and to help reduce the number of times you have to put this grip on and remove it. So what I'm looking at is like, all right, I've got my lines here. It's starting to feel tight. It's not completely tight, but I know I can pull down on it a little bit more and really get those last 2-3 inches. So that's really what I'm going for the bottom. Roughly 2 to 3 inches where it's nice and snug, and I know once I've got some glue in there, it will lube it up and it'll make it easier to push out. So this one's lined up. My butt grip I've already reamed out as well too. Just kind of show you the same thing on this as well too. So I've got my marking here at the back end, and I can push this down. It's actually just a little bit tighter fit. Actually, I might ream this out just a hair more to make sure I can pull it all the way through. But I'm about to the very bottom, about 4 inches. I am going to ream this out just a hair so that I don't have any problems here as I'm trying to glue it on. Alright guys, so once you have everything reamed out, the next thing you'll want to do is, so we talked about marking our spine, and actually when you use Winn Grips, they have the seam on them as well. And so what we want to do is we want to make sure this seam is on the bottom of the rod when it's being fished. So in addition to marking your spine, which I've got up there, I'm going to mark another line here, which just lets me know that I want these seams to be on there. As well. So when I flip this rod upside down to put these grips, I'm going to make sure that these seams on these Winn Grips are on the bottom of the blank and not on the top. So just to make it just looks cleaner that way. So all right, Now, as far as actually mixing glue, so I like using a little glass plate. These are $1. You can buy these at the dollar store. Nothing too fancy, and then we just clean them and we use them until they get to a certain point. Then we discard them and we throw them away. So, and then today we're going to be using Flex Coat Rod Builder's epoxy glue. So, so with this little glass, it's actually pretty nice. It gives us a nice base here, so we can actually build, like, put small batches of glue as we're putting different components on. I like using it over cardboard because all the glue that you put on here actually stays on the plate and it doesn't get absorbed into the cardboard, so it all stays up on the surface and you can get more out of your glue. So now that I've got everything reamed out, I went ahead and spaced everything on here. So still got my lines here. And the one line I didn't show you earlier that's important is the reel seat. So the front of the reel seat also needs to be on there so you know how much glue to put on there. So we'll go ahead and get started now. So I've got the butt grip. I've got a winding check for the butt grip. I've got a winding check for the rear grip. And then I've got the rear grip itself. So I'm going to start putting little, the first part I'm going to put is for the butt grip. So this is probably about a dime size of each. And then mixing them with this little popsicle stick that we got. So on this one, I'm going to start putting it right at that line, actually right in front of that line where the rear grip is going to end up at. And as I'm putting it on there, I'm actually going to twist the blank to make sure that the glue levels out and kind of doesn't start dripping on me too much. I'm going to start building it up here. Again, just put as much glue as you can. Any of that excess glue is going to get squeegeed off by the grip, or by the butt, so don't be too worried about having blobs of glue. And then we'll come back and clean any excess glue there. Now I'm going to go ahead and start pulling this guy back. And as the excess glue kind of gets squeegeed off, I'm just going to let it keep on rolling down and twisting it so that it kind of makes its way to the bottom and doesn't just fall off. And so what you'll do is you'll put this on here and you'll keep on twisting this until you make your way down. And then here you're going to look at the lines that you put on the bottom, and you're going to make sure that this seam line lines up with those lines there. It looks pretty good right there. All right. Now we're just going to put a little bit of glue here on the front. We'll come back and put a butt on later, or the butt cover on later. I'm just going to put a little bit of glue here to get that winding check on. Some people don't use winding checks, some people do, so if you're going to use them, yeah, you just want to put a little bit of glue on there. Some people actually just build it up with epoxy. I've seen that done too. That looks nice too. So it's just really what your preference is. So if depending on the diameter, sometimes they will roll over themselves. So before you put it on, you want to make sure that it's not rolled up on itself. And just bring it on slowly. If you do roll it up on itself like this one, then you just kind of work it back and forth to get it to loosen up and get it on there correctly. Now the next thing to do is we're going to clean off some of this excess glue. And in order to do that, we use these mechanic towels and some rubbing alcohol. And so what I do is I buy this, I punch a little hole into to the top of this foil, so I don't get a full stream, just a little bit at a time. And I'm just going to clean off some of this excess glue that's on here. So you just take these napkins and cut them into small little cubes or small little squares so you can get the most out of them. And really just anywhere you have excess glue, you're going to go ahead and wipe it off. I like using at least 2 or 3 per grip. I know it might be excessive, but I'd rather kind of get off any glue early on than trying to have to deal with it later, especially on these Winn Grips. These Winn Grips don't lend themselves to cleaning excess glue, so definitely get it off while you're when it's still wet. So now I've got that. The next step is to go ahead and glue up this the rear grip. But if you're going to put a winding check, you're definitely going to want to bring that winding check all the way past your marker before you start doing that. Otherwise, you're going to make a mess. So same thing, start up at the top, really build it up there, knowing that when you're going to be pushing it down as you're bringing that grip down. Just about there. Now you want to make sure your seams line up pretty good. Actually, that rear grip twisted on me a little bit, or the butt grip did. Set it, push it down a little bit, and now you can take this winding chuck and push it up. Alright. So now that both of that's on, now we can go ahead and give it a really good cleaning before we proceed with installing the seat. So today I'll be installing this Fuji seat, this trigger seat, and so it does have, these do come size to your blank. Depending on the blank diameter, determine what size you use. Even though they're sized, we like to get them a little bit smaller. And then ream them out the remaining way, so just so we make sure we have a good fit exactly where we want them to be. So you can't ream them out. You can't ream them out too much, otherwise you kind of pass up on these little threads or these little grips that are inside of it. So you definitely don't want to sand those down too much, but at least enough where you're going to get a really tight fit. The other thing that helps us here is we use these North Fork blanks. And some of these North Fork blanks have a little bit of a texture to them, specifically the Delta series, the X-Ray series, the HMs and the IMs are, actually those are pretty, have a nice polished sanded finish, but if you're using the Delta or the X-Ray blanks, they do have a little bit of texture to them, and it actually helps lock in these seats. These casting seats have that trunnion on the bottom, so that's really where a lot of the glue is going to go, because everything above that is going to be fitted. So you don't need too much glue up on top, but let's go ahead and just put a little bit in there just to make sure we get some caught in those arbors that are a part of the blank, or it's a part of the seat, inside the seat. And same style as we're putting this on, we just continue to twist it by hand. Let's start pulling our wheel seat down. Twisting this guy up. Twisting, 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 twisting. There we go. Now let's get this last bit in. Alright, I've got my reel seat lined up. Now I'm just going to wipe off any glue that you may have gotten on this. And really, here's just your chance to give it one final wipe down before you put it to dry. Anywhere I could have potentially grabbed this blank, I'm going to give it a good wipe, just to make sure that everything is nice and clean and I don't have these glue spots. So the last thing you're going to do now is just go ahead and clean your little mixing tray, if you will. And so the way you do this, you just take a little bit of alcohol, you put it on here, and then you just basically mix the alcohol into the glue, the residual glue, and you just kind of see it starting to work up, and I can see the little spots, and it loosens up. It's all wet now. Just take a napkin and give it just wipe it all away. Alright guys, so there you go. That's how you get your seats on, your rear grips, and your butts. So if you got any value out of this, please like this video. If you have any questions or comments about how we put on real seats or rear grips, sorry, add it in the comments below. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Again, we'll continue to put out information to try to help everybody become better rod builders. I will be putting all this together in a rod building playlist and kind of list all the steps sequentially. So step 1, cutting your blank. Step 2 is finding the spine. Step 3, getting your grips on, and so forth. So stay tuned, watch out for that, and thanks again. We'll see you on the next one.
In my mind, I've got 'em big red on the line. That's where I go when I'm itching to feed my 7-day addiction.